Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am doing my weekly wrap up. I had a really good week this week because it was the start of the Mafia Readathon. That's the readathon Jen from the Book Refuge puts on. I love it every year. It's a blast. So I read quite a bit because I was getting kind of competitive and I wanted to get as many points as I could for her readathon. So definitely a fantastic week with my Mafia reads. So I'm going to go over all the books that I read between May 5th and May 11th. And I did read 9 books. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive into my weekly reads. Okay, everyone. So to start off the week, I did my big book that I really needed to get through because I am going to be on Jen's live show for the Outlander Readathon again. I'm having such a great time. This is a reread for me. And I finished Voyager, and this one is a thickie. So I ended up buying it too on ebook. I listened to the audiobook and, you know, highlighted as I went. But this is the 3rd book in the Outlander series. And I had such a good time with this one. This is my final reread because I don't know why, but like I read up to book 3 and then I just quit. I don't know why, because rereading this, I think I enjoyed it and appreciated it more than I did the first time. Because the first time I had a lot of hard time with like the current timeline where Claire is not with Jamie. It like felt like it dragged a lot for me and I just wanted Jamie and Claire to be together. But this time I appreciated it more because Roger and her daughter Bree are like such important characters, and just to see their dynamic, to see Roger and Bree kind of like falling for each other. And then it makes it so much more impactful for when Claire goes back in time again and she's with Jamie. So if you haven't read this, or seen the show, I don't want to give too much away, but if you're not interested, you can just skip to the next book. But basically, this book, it, picks up where Claire in the current time, she basically had to go through the stones when Culloden was happening and they couldn't put a stop to it, and she was pregnant. And so she ends up going back to the stones and just kind of assumed that Jamie had died in Culloden. But Jamie didn't. And so she's kind of in Scotland working with Roger and Bree, and they're looking through history to try and find out what happened to Jamie, because they do get some information that he may not have died in Culloden. So that's a lot of what's going on. They're trying to figure out what happened to Jamie. In this book, you also have Jamie's POV, which was great because it's going to show you back after Culloden, everything that he went through. He has quite an adventure, a lot of stuff going on. This new character of John Grey, who was introduced in the previous one when he was like a very, very young man during Culloden, and he thought Claire was kidnapped by Jamie, and he threatened, like, he went to go save her, but it was really his wife. And so he's just a great character, and it's just sad because he ends up being like the head of at the prison where Jamie is at, and he just falls in love with Jamie. I swear everybody around Jamie falls in love with Jamie, but Jamie only loves Claire. So it's just so sad to see that, like, unrequited love of John Grey. I loved seeing young Ian, the introduction of young Ian in this book. And I've only seen him after this book in like the show, so I just love young Ian. So seeing his character in here, getting to see Jenny again, all these characters. But the biggest thing that made me so emotional and I started crying was when Claire goes back in time and they're reunited. And it was just so beautiful. Like, I just love it. Like, Jamie, I highlight so many of his lines because he is still like a king amongst men. He is book boyfriend forever. He's just everything. I wish we really had Jamie Fraser in real life. He's just perfection. So I loved this. I mean, there's so much adventure going on in this. They're going to like locations you would never even think of. And then where they end up at the end of the book is really cool too. So I have no idea why I didn't continue with this. So I'm very excited that Jen put on this readathon because now it's forced me to go through the whole series. It is a big commitment, but if you are doing the read along, I hope you guys join us for that show. I believe it's the 18th, if I'm thinking correctly. It's on Saturday. So this upcoming Saturday. So anyways, I enjoyed this so much more. I gave it 5 stars and 2.5 chilies, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, so then I had some ARCs to read, and I read So Wrong by Abby Millsaps. I've never read this author before, so that's what I'm trying to do is get some more ARCs of authors I don't really know yet to kind of introduce myself to some new authors. And this one is actually, I don't know if it's fully like a Why Choose or if it's going to be an MMF at this point, but it is a series. So this is the first book in The Boys of South Chapel, and this is between Greedy, Levi, and Hunter. And this one was interesting because it kind of constantly went back in time, doing flashbacks, and then the current timeline, which can be kind of tough in books, but I think it did it pretty well. The transitions went really well in this. And what we have in this book is Hunter. She's actually returned after 3 years to come back home and go to school. She left. She kind of fled for the UK and has been living over there after they graduated high school. And you get to see kind of in the flashbacks how she fell in love with Greedy. And they really fell for each other. They had this summer fling too that was just, they were all in. She was becoming super close with him and Levi. Levi was his best friend. And so you're kind of wondering what happened. You know, one thing that happened for sure was that their parents end up getting married. So he becomes her stepbrother, but you kind of know there has to be something bigger here that like stopped them from being together. And because she completely fled, cut him out of her life. She like didn't talk to Levi anymore. She didn't talk to Greedy anymore. But now she's living back in her stepdad's house with Greedy, but she's really cruel to him, like, because she's basically pushed him away and been cruel to him because she's doing what's best for him. Nothing I hate more than like white finging, and like she basically ended things for him because whatever. I got so frustrated with this heroine, but I still liked her. So that was interesting. So in this, you have them with their dynamic. Greedy is like pining for her so hard. He wants to be with her. And so your heart just breaks for him throughout this book, especially seeing how great they were together. And then you have Levi, and he is Greedy's best friend. He was actually going to school in California, but he has had a really bad football injury that he didn't get treated. And now it's basically taken him out where he's never going to be able to play football. And so he's back home. He has to get this surgery done and a lot of PT, and it's a lot of work. And he doesn't want to be back under it with his mom. His mom is like a religious freak. He is bi, and she's like constantly trying to fix him and that he shouldn't be with men and all this kind of stuff. And so in order to help him so he didn't have to stay with the mom, Hunter basically pretends like they're boyfriend and girlfriend and that he's going to stay with her. And so now he's living with Greedy and Hunter. And there's this weird dynamic going on because she like really is connected to Levi too. And he actually knows her secret of like what happened the day, like that, basically that day, week that she left. He's like the only one that really knows. And, you know, he's like kept the secret from Greedy. So it's a lot of like this hidden stuff going on, but that does get revealed at the end of the book. It did frustrate me the way what happened and how she handled it and how she kept it from Greedy. So that was kind of frustrating. So I could see how that'd be hard for people. But I actually really like the dynamic. And so it's kind of like her falling for Levi too, but still being in love with Greedy, but keeping Greedy away. And, you know, things start to happen with her and Levi, and can all of them be together? So it's interesting. I don't want to say too much because it gives things away that happen at the end, but it got pretty spicy and it was a very sexy scene I was enjoying. But then there's a cliffhanger and another guy shows up at the end. So I ended up enjoying it. I did find the heroine really frustrating. Obviously, I can't say all the reasons why because I don't want to give things away. It hasn't even released yet. But I did end up giving this 4 stars and 3.5 chilies because there is some sharing and fun time in there. Okay, so then I read another arc, and that is Not So Truly Yours by Julia Wolf. And if you've watched my channel, you know I love Julia Wolf. I gave P.S. You're Intolerable 6 stars. It was one of my top 10 books from last year. I loved it so much. This is the 4th book in that series, and this is The Harder They Fall, the series. This is book number 4. And this is between Miles and Daisy. And you've seen Miles in the previous books. He's kind of like the way that his friends and his brother viewed him was like the playboy. He's a player, he's a partier, you can't take him seriously. So I was really surprised by his book because there was so much more to Miles and I really loved him. It's another hero that Julia Wolf has served us on a platter. That is perfection. He's very like sunshiny, and Daisy, the heroine, is like the grumpy. So Daisy and him have a few run-ins. They met a couple times when she works at this bar. That's his friend's bar. And he was kind of helping his friend out one night, bartending and stuff. And they kind of meet there. She works at the bar actually selling her like cupcakes. And then instead of charcuterie boards, they're like little cups that she created, and they're a huge hit. And so she really wants to do that as her own business too, but she just doesn't know where to start, and she just keeps kind of making excuses. She just got out of like a long 7-year relationship, so she was kind of brokenhearted about that. But she's not totally hung up on the guy. It's just, it was like a waste of her time because she actually ended the relationship because he didn't really want to get married, but let her think he wanted to get married for years. Anyways, so she ends up, going to the business, this business that helps you, you know, plan your company, make business plans and help you succeed. And that happens to be Miles' company. So he actually starts to help her with opening her own kind of business with her cupcakes and charcuterie meat cups. And she kind of has a hard time because her family owns the funeral home in this town, and everybody like views them badly because of the funeral home, which I don't get that. Like, why are you viewed badly? It didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but who knows with small towns and things like that. So, she kind of like feels like nobody will take a chance on her, and because of who she is and her last name, she has a lot of tragic stuff in her background with her sister dying, and almost like you think she might have unalived herself or she was pushed. It was just a really bad situation. So she had a lot of issues in her family. And so he thinks that they should fake date so she could use his rich Aldrich name because his family is very powerful and rich and well loved in the city. And then that will kind of they can go to these parties together, and he can like get her connections to kind of help her business grow. And so they decided to do this. And so they fake date. And I just loved how Daisy really started off with a bad impression of him, but the more she like hung out with him and they did these dates together, she realized there was so much more to Miles. And she saw who the Miles was. He was sober. He'd been sober for almost a year. And his brother didn't even notice. His friends don't even notice. It's like his friends and brother just totally underestimated him. And so I love how she gets them to see how amazing he is and how he's trying, and he's making these changes in his life for good reasons. So I love that she saw that, and she like supported him. She supported him. She like praised him for his getting sober and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that I loved in this book was his relationship with her younger brother. Her younger brother's kind of emo, getting very badly bullied. So a very big triggers in this for like suicidal thoughts and all of that kind of thing, because he's really having a rough time and the family can't get him to connect with them. So Miles fully like reaches out to him and builds a relationship with him And just watching that throughout the book was so beautiful. So I just loved Miles so much. Him and Daisy were so cute together. I wanted them to be together. You could feel their connection and them falling in love. And I just loved it. I don't know what it is, but Julia Wolf is killing it with this series. I haven't disliked one. They're so good. So I gave this one 5 stars, and then I gave it 3 chilies. Okay, so then I listened, because I signed up for Lillian Harris's ALC team. So I did get the ALC for Savage Wounds. This is actually the 4th book in the Messina crime family. I just read my first Lillian Harris, so this is the last book in a series, so I was kind of nervous about jumping in at the last book, but honestly, she does such a good job of like setting up the characters and the plots and like things that went on in previous books that I didn't feel like I was missing a ton. Obviously, it probably would have been way better if I read the previous books, but I still had a good time with this. This is a really dark romance. This is a romance between a serial killer vigilante heroine. Yeah, the heroine. And then we have basically like a hidden identity. We don't know. He has connections in a certain way, but he is a masked stalker. So in this, we have Kaya, and her and her friends were basically taken by a sex trafficking ring, which she was basically forced into that for like 9 years. So there is a lot of like, you'll get flashbacks of her like with PTSD and has severe trauma and the sexual assault, all that stuff. Some of it's on page, so just be aware. That's big triggers. But she has been freed, but she has a lot of anger and she wants to like kill these guys that did that to her. And she kind of comes against a guy at like, she's become a stripper. And she does have like that CNC type of interest because she likes the idea of the CNC, consensual non-consent, because she would have the power in that and all that kind of stuff, and she can control the situation, which you'll see that a lot with SA victims. So she actually likes being a stripper because it's like the men can like, she can like to feel wanted and like they want her, but they can't touch her. They're not allowed to do anything. A guy gropes her and then she like, gets pissed off about that. And then later he's like fully like assaulting one of the strippers. And so she like whips out her knife and she decides to go to his house later and kill him. And so it's a pretty messy killing. It's not like you're going to get away with that. And so she ends up calling one of her friends' husbands, who's in the Messina crime family, and he comes and cleans it up for her. And he's like, that's it. You have to have a bodyguard. We need to keep you safe. You need a bodyguard. And so we get this bodyguard character, but we also have Adriel, who is her stalker. He happens to see her do this. He sees her kill somebody. He's kind of fascinated by her. He's following her around. So like when she starts to go do these vigilante like killings, he shows up, he helps her, he helps clean up the mess, and they have this insane like connection. And so it's basically the romance between them. It's a lot of killing and torturing and going after these bad guys. There's another serial killer killing innocent women, so she's trying to like find him. So it was interesting. I flew through this audiobook. It was a really great audiobook. I had a good time with it, but I think, I didn't fully feel the connection of the characters, and it just felt like a lot of violence. Which I'm okay with that, but I just didn't connect to them as much. So I did give this 4 stars, and then I gave it 3 chilies. So now that actually was the start of the Mafia Readathon. That book, I read it for it. But some of these books, I think it's the rest of the books. Yeah, the rest of the books are going to be all for the Mafia Readathon. I'm not going to go super in depth into them because later this week I am going to post a Mafia Readathon vlog. So if you want to see that, hopefully I'll post that either like probably Thursday or Friday. And you can check out more thoughts on them. So I will kind of try to keep this brief. The first book, the other book that I read was Cruel Paradise by J.T. Geisinger. This is the second book in that like Cruel series, Cruelly Beautiful. I can't remember what it's called. I thought the first book with Liam Black was good. It was decent. I thought that it was a good mafia romance until the end where it's like revealed that they're like spies and they're like, it's like they're using being the head of the Irish mafia as like a cover and to make connections, but they're really like these spies, and he has a twin brother named Killian. And then at the end of that, like basically Killian takes over for Liam as Liam, and Liam goes off with his woman. So in this, we have the romance between Killian and Juliet, and I didn't really like it. Juliet is like a mafia princess, but she like changed her name with her two best friends, and they live like, and they basically do stuff to steal from bad guys and give to the poor or something. And it just was kind of ridiculous, which I was like, okay, that wasn't the issue for me. She ends up stealing like a huge truckload of diapers from one of Killian's many companies. And he sees it, these girls basically hijack this thing, and he's fascinated. So he finds out who she is. Obviously, he's got a million connections because he's undercover. This is why I read this for the undercover prompt, because he is actually like a big time spy, like heads up his spy like kind of thing going on. I don't know. It's a little unbelievable, but he basically becomes obsessed with her. And my problem is that I don't know why he was obsessed with her. I hated this heroine. She was so fucking annoying. She basically would push him away the whole time because he's a gangster and she doesn't want to be with a gangster and blah, blah, blah. But even though you could see all these red flags or hints going on that he's not just a gangster, and she would still push him away and act better than him and act like she couldn't be with him because he's a gangster. And it was just getting really irritating watching him pursue her and her be a fucking bitch. And it's like JT was trying to make this like sassy, I'm so sassy, I'm so feisty, when she just came off annoying as fuck and stupid, honestly. I hated her, so that's why I'm kind of ranting here. I said I wasn't going to go too long, but I felt like this book was almost like just like a repeat of the first one, because the first one was literally the guy kidnapping her. He doesn't kidnap her in this one, but like she won't be with him. He's a gangster. I won't be with you. And then like he just keeps, you know, it's boy obsessed, wears down the girl, and it just felt too similar to that. And then when she starts to finally like put pieces together, she gets it wrong. She thinks he's a narc, but like she blames him and is like, oh, you were just using me. And I'm just like, oh my God, this girl is so stupid. Just have a freaking conversation. Killian the whole time is like, once you're all in with me and you trust me and that you're telling me you love me, I will tell you everything. But she will not do it. And so it pissed me off. I loved Killian. I think he was a great character, but I don't know why he cared about this heroine. I didn't care about her. She was stupid. She made stupid decisions, and she irritated me. So I ended up giving this 2.5 stars. And then I think 3 chilies, but I was irritated the whole time I read it. I skimmed a lot of this book. So there's that. So real quickly, I'm just going to bring up the other 2 that I read. They were rereads. I read Twisted Emotions, which is Nino Falcone's romance with Chiara. This is my favorite mafia romance of all time. So it's like, if you haven't seen me talk about it, I do have a Cora Riley Mafia, like intro to Mafia video. So if you want, check that out, because I go into each of the books and the reading order and everything. But this is basically the story of Nino Falcone. He's in the Camorra. His brother, Remo Falcone, heads the Camorra in Las Vegas. And it's an arranged marriage between him and Chiara. Chiara is the daughter of a trader from the Familia in New York. And so they kind of put her up for this. She has severe trauma because one of her uncles had sexually assaulted her multiple times. So she has a lot of trauma. And she goes into this marriage very scared because she thinks he's going to find out she's not a virgin and blame her and, you know, could kill her, because the Falcones are pretty crazy. But Nino could tell something happened to her and somebody abused her instantly when they're about to have sex. And so she tells him about her uncle, and he basically he's like, I will give them the bloody sheets by killing him on those sheets and presenting them. And so he gets his brother Ramo, and Ramo's more than happy to help him out with that, and they kill that uncle. And so this is a story of her and Nino in this arranged marriage, and him like being so patient with her to try and help her get through her trauma and to feel in control in sex and realize that sex can be a beautiful, amazing thing. Nino also is very like shut off with his emotions, and he's very honest with her about that. Like, I don't have emotions. I don't feel anything. I can reenact those emotions for you if you need it. So it's this slow build between them of like coming together and like Nino's emotions coming into play near the end. And I just love it so much. I love Nino Falcone. So this is, I believe I gave it 6 stars originally. I'm going to keep it at a 6-star because it's just one of my favorites. I love it so much. And it's even better when you read Twisted Bonds, which is the second part of their story. It continues their story, and it's beautiful. Okay, then the next one that I read was actually Jen's pick for the readathon. So that's kind of why I read both of these, because I was going to read this one, which was Twisted Pride, which is which is Ramo Falcone's romance, and this is Jen's pick. So I was like, I'm going to read that, but I was like, I got to read Twisted Emotions because it's still my favorite. So this is Ramo. He's crazy. He's psychotic. His plan is to kidnap a rival family's niece. He kidnaps Dante from the Chicago Outfits niece on her wedding day in her wedding dress and takes her to Vegas. And it's this cat and mouse game between them. She's a lot sassy and feisty and doesn't back down. And he's very intrigued by her. And so it's a captor-captive, psychopath kind of romance. And I really loved it. I ended up buying the audiobook this time, and I flew through it in a day, and it was so good. I did listen to the audiobook on Twisted Emotions too, and was very happy because Teddy Hamilton narrated it. So I gave this one, again, a reread. I gave it 5 stars. And then I think I gave this one 3.5 chilies or 3 chilies. So then I read an author that I had never read before for the readathon, and that was Ruthless King by Faith Summers. And this is actually the 6th book in the Dark Syndicate, so I just jumped in, but I happened to see Jen recommend this before, and it was a cartel age gap, all this goodies. So this is actually between Alejandro and Lucia, and Alejandro is the head of the cartel. A lot of stuff is going on right now in the cartel, and it's like he's kind of in danger. His brother was killed, and so he's basically taken in his brother's child, and so he also needs a nanny and all of that. Lucia is actually forced to become his nanny to kind of spy on him by his enemy that's after him. And so her dad's life is in danger. So she's kind of forced to go after this job to spy on him and report on everything. The nanny position also means it's like it kind of comes with the duties of hooking up with him. So he's very clear up front that's what he wants. So she kind of has to do it. She has to do whatever it takes to keep her dad alive. So she ends up going and doing this. And it is spicy. There's a little BDSM. It's a big age gap. I love this cover. And the audiobook was amazing because the male narrator's accent was super sexy. And it was really cool to read like a cartel because I haven't read a lot of cartel before. So this one was super spicy. It's cartel, like single dad, nanny, age gap, all of that. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I do think the ending was a little rushed, but it was very fast-paced, very quick read, so I still enjoyed it. So I gave it 4 stars and then 4 chilies because there's cuffing her to the bed, you know, anal, like spicy times. It's a good time. So the final book that I read was Darkest Sins by Neva Altaj, and this is my favorite book in the Perfectly Imperfect series. I don't know how Neva does this, but she gets better with each book where I think this is my new favorite, and that shows right here because it's the 9th book, and it's so good. This series doesn't get stale. It doesn't get repetitive. There's so many different types of mafias. So if you have not read this yet or picked up the series, I highly recommend it. It is so good. I think it's a great intro to Mafia, and they get better. Her writing has evolved, and she's getting better with each book. And in this, it's like a romance between an assassin and a mafia princess. We have Kai, and he was actually introduced in a previous book. If you've read those previous books, Sergei and Az were part of this kind of like special ops type of group that was trained from a very young age to be like killers. And so that's what Kai is. And he was taken in at 8 years old. He has a very sad like background. He doesn't really have connection to people. He would fight people and like attack them if they came near him. So he was taken at 8 to be trained and molded into like this perfect killing machine. And so he is an assassin. He takes on these jobs for that boss. And he actually has a pretty bad mission. Gets pretty badly wounded and is kind of like bleeding out badly in this alley. And Nira sees him. She happens to be driving by, sees him, and she kind of does a stupid thing, but it's okay because I love her. And she goes and tries to help him. She actually works at a vet clinic. Her dad is a pretty chill, like he's actually the Don in the Boston Cosa Nostra. And he actually lets her go to school and have a job, which is not, you don't see that really in Mafia. And so she actually takes him back to the vet to patch him up. And then that's basically it. And he goes on his way. But he becomes obsessed with her and he wants to keep her protected and safe. So he kind of becomes this like guardian angel of her. He stalks her, but he doesn't stalk her to an extent where he like knows who she really is. He didn't even know she was a Mafia princess. He just keeps an eye on her. And so she kind of always is aware when he's near. She can feel him. And he also will self-inflict injuries on himself so he can show up at her vet clinic to get help again. So they kind of go through this for like a year. And then, you know, they slowly like are like really fall for each other. Kai is like so sweet. Like he's so protective of her. But he thinks he's like a monster and she's too good for him. And so, you know, things start to happen where they're going to be together, but something bad happens. A big thing that like makes it so he thinks like he could never be with her and she would never forgive him. And then it kind of, that was like the past timeline. And then it goes to the current timeline where it's like 3 years later. So I don't want to give too much away, but this did have one of those things that I usually don't like in a romance, but she did it really well. I want to say more. I think I say more. I'll say more in my like Mafia vlog. So it'll have spoilers in that one that you can see. But I loved this. I loved how hard they fought to be together, how much they loved each other, the communication. Like, they were just so adorable. I cannot wait till the next book because it's going to be her sister and, like, their stepbrother's romance. So I am super excited. So this one I gave 5 stars and I gave 3.5 chilies. It is my favorite, new favorite in the series. And I'm so excited for the next one. And she's going to be doing a second generation too of like their kids and stuff. So I can't wait. So those are the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you can, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my channel, like my video, and leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you participated in the Mafia Readathon. I hope you guys did. And I will see you guys on the next one.